last week was a pretty interesting political week, and it's continued on into this week. We've had the Brett Kavanaugh saga that's been ongoing with these Democrats in the Senate.
Just another chapter of the #MeToo movement.
Yeah.
I just look at it as a big freaking circus.
It is a circus.
It's a joke. It's a farce, and it shouldn't be allowed to continue.
Well, it is continuing. We've now gotten to the point as of this Monday where there is an FBI hearing, or an FBI investigation, I should say. And FBI's never really done this kind of thing before. They've admitted to that, so it's all new to them. I'm sure they're kind of being caught off guard and trying to figure this whole thing out as they go along.
It's just part of a typical Democratic deny, stall, and defame protocol.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, you sit there, and pardon me, I'm a little under the weather today, but it's part of their typical game. They don't get their way. You don't follow their program. They just screw with you. That's all they're doing.
There's a lot of old guard Democrats that have been kind of called out in this thing with Feinstein and Schumer, and as covertly as they tried to kind of work this thing through the system, only thing they've really done is caused them more attention to be directed in their way than they ever anticipated.
So it's interesting you say that, because we're going to talk initially about the accusers and where we're leading up to. And one of the things that's really funny about this whole thing is the fact that this all started with a memo to Dianne Feinstein. It was a confidential letter that went to Feinstein and then got into the think tank with Chuck Schumer and all of them. And instead of taking proper channels, they decided to go their route, the route that we're on now.
Right.
What I think is funny is that now, to your point, has opened up an investigation on their offices for that leak.
Yeah, they're dancing in their own minefield at this point.
They are.
And this whole thing, I mean, number one is taking an as heinous an act as that is,
right,
and turning it into and basically weaponizing it. As I'm going to harm the sitting president that I don't like, and I'm going to make him powerless by making all the choices that he wants to make. Either he's going to have to play ball with me, or I'm not going to give him what he wants.
And you would think they'd learn by now that that's not the guy you do this to.
Right.
No.
I mean, let's
this was a George Bush. You should have done this to George Bush. That's who you could have got away with this.
Exactly. Here, let's look at the cast here.
Sure.
We've got, I'm going to jump a little ahead here, but we got Ellison.
Right.
That beat his wife.
Oh, yeah.
Beat his wife. There's a 911 tape of the incident.
There's pictures of it.
There's pictures of her.
Yeah, pictures.
Then you got Cory Booker.
Look at Spartacus.
Look at this guy, and look at what he's done. And then you've got guys like Joe Biden, old school groper.
Yeah.
Been around for a long freaking time.
Well, that's the thing about Cory Booker. He admitted it himself. He's the one that came out and said, "Yeah, I was copping a feel."
Right.
And go back to even just Bill Clinton.
That's where I was going next. This is the king philanderer of them all.
Right.
You got to save the best for last.
Well, but he learned it from the Kennedys.
Yeah,
you can,
because the Kennedys knew where to go find good ass. And Bill knew where to go with him. I'm telling you, it's amazing to me how people forget this shit. We're sitting here now, wasting days and wasting nights.
Good song, by the way.
Over this bullshit.
Yeah.
This is a game run by a bunch of old school Democrats that clearly have an agenda. They're not interested in these girls' rights.
Well,
they're sacrificial lambs in their little slaughter.
Just look at Stormy Daniels. If you don't believe that, look at Stormy Daniels. Where is she? You don't hear from her. Nobody cares.
Well, it's funny.
They used her up, and she's gone.
Well, but Trump put her back to work.
That's true.
She's making porno again. See? The dream is still alive.
Making America great again via porn.
I mean, even...
She's had more mustard on her than a hot dog at a ballpark. That's all I know.
But just making her name relevant.
Yeah.
Giving her 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. I mean, she benefits in that way, regardless of when you try to muddle through all the stories that they're telling to try to figure out what is fact, what is fiction.
Right. Well, you know what, though? The archivists at the Porn Hall of Fame had to do a lot of digging to find her videos, I guarantee. Yeah. Because, it's a sad state of affairs. Now we have Christine Blasey Ford.
Yep. There's our first accuser.
Yeah, so she's the first one that came out. And so the timeline, now you have to keep in mind, we're only working with information that we have. We are more of an entertainment group than anything else. But we are going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's put before us. And one of the things that was put before us was this memo. This memo went to Dianne Feinstein when, in July?
Back in July, 1st of July.
So it was initially a confidential memo.
Right.
Very loosely written.
Yeah, very loosely.
Loosely written.
She wanted to keep it in-house. If I recall from the information that we have, she wanted to keep herself confidential. She wanted to keep her face out of the media, and she wanted this to be handled privately, not publicly in a hearing setting.
This memo that we're talking about, this is the one that was written on a legal pad, right?
Right.
Okay,
Blasio,
that's the one, yeah.
And Blasio, like I said, wanted to keep it under wraps.
Right.
No, she is a professor at Palo Alto University. She teaches grad students. She's a clinical psychology instructor.
Anyway.
Credited with over 50 books of various subject matter related to psychology, gender, all kinds of different studies that she's done. So, so you would think that.
Sounds like a career student. That's
it is, but her ability to write a memo that made sense should have been there. This was pretty bad. So she has this. Somehow, Uncle Chuck Schumer from
Diane's probably shot her mouth off at some lunch or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I got this letter. We ought to do something with this. I can hear that little luncheon now.
So Chuck says, "Hey, let's do something with this."
Right.
Chuck is behind this all the way.
Right.
Yeah. Now he is
definitely the driving force.
Very vindictive. Only because the president does come from the state he represents.
That's right. So it gets a little interesting. So So continue on. She's got her stuff out there.
She does, and she shows up at the hearings with her little mousy voice and puts on her little act. And it's really interesting when you start looking at the facts that she presented. She really doesn't have any facts to give. Her background, some interesting points in her background that I found is her connection with her brother-in-law being part of Fusion GPS. Her brother-in-law is the lawyer, or one of the lawyers, that helped put together the Fusion GPS deal, which is Uranium One.
Mm-hmm. I kept thinking the Clintons were more into the Uranus, not uranium. I'm sorry. So it's uranium? Okay. Yeah, I just want to be sure. It's funny because when you want to bring something before a court,
right,
you want to have some kind of evidence,
right,
a video. An audio
36
tape.
years ago. This allegedly took place 36 years ago.
A video, an audio tape, corroborating witnesses, which they have none of.
Right.
But
none. Zero.
When you look at, like we were talking before we went on the air, was when y'all pointed out the Fusion GPS thing, so I haven't really kept track of all these tangent pieces of information. But, when you start looking at what they mean, and all of a sudden the term 6 degrees of separation starts coming into the conversation. I start looking at all the people involved who stand to gain if their will is
if it prevails.
Because all the characters, whether you know who they are or not, will have one in some way. So let's say hypothetically that it's the Clintons. Well, that'll be Clinton's way of getting back at Trump for supposedly stealing the election,
right.
And all the other characters out there who have some axe to grind with Trump in some way.
Well, if you look at the progressive movement over the 8 years of Obama, it was full steam ahead. These guys were moving this agenda full steam ahead all the way. Trump gets in there, he's basically an obstructionist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all hands on deck. They're playing all in right now on this Kavanaugh thing because they know that if we seat 1, 2, or 3 Supreme Court justices, that's going to take care of it for quite a while.
It will.
Oh yeah,
especially if they're young.
Yeah, so that's why this is an all-in game for them. So what I think is funny. So what else do we want to say about Ms. Blasey Ford?
Well, like I said, it's just interesting some of her background, how you look at it, the facts and details that she is lacking. Are just stunning. I don't know.
No corroboration.
None at all.
No corroboration.
So we all grew up in the 80s. This is really in our age, mostly my age group and your age group.
Well, yeah.
And so we grew up in the 80s. And how many fraternity parties have you been to?
A ton. Enough to see some crazy shit.
Exactly. There's a lot of drinking involved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of petting and making out involved.
Right.
There's a lot of, I want attention from this guy. I want attention from this girl.
Absolutely, yes.
There's a lot of the social interaction that goes on at these parties.
Right.
And we're all of a sudden expected to believe that the girls just showed up because they're being preyed upon.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like they were dropped off here out of some, like they were in a coma. They woke up in this room and,
all of a sudden
there's no pretext to them getting here.
We're surrounded by a bunch of wolves.
And
right.
The one thing that I don't recall is of all the parties that I went to is females and their personalities being so demure that they would not go along with something just to not be difficult.
Sure. Right.
I
never met one like that.
No, I was like, no.
Or fit in.
Yeah, but
they want to look cool.
But you still want to be your own person. If you don't want to do something, they're going to fight back. They're going to say something because it was all about talking. We talked smack back then.
Yeah.
Even the girls did. If they didn't like you, they would say something about it. Not that there's anything wrong with it. You want them to grow a backbone and be able to think for themselves.
I was never a fan of frat guys. I'll be honest with you.
Same
all my
here.
Frat guys out there, y'all can kiss my ass.
Well, when we get into the hearings, we'll discuss exactly kind of what she covered in the hearings and how events unfolded. I think it'll be interesting when we get to the hearing.
Well, let's talk about Deborah Ramirez.
Okay.
Second
accuser.
From
83 to 84. He was in college. Mm-hmm. And this is a party. She's a heavy drinker, an admitted heavy drinker. Drank all the time.
So they were at Yale together?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, they were at a party.
It was.
Okay.
They were at a party at Yale.
Right. And apparently they were in a drinking game, and the accusation here is it's stepped up a notch. He whipped his Johnson out and waved it in her face.
There's two stories behind that. They're saying one, that's one of them. The other one is that he exposed himself in a room of people.
Right.
Which, again, there's no corroborating witnesses.
It seems like somebody, at least one person, would step forward out of all these people and say, yeah, I was there for that.
So under intense questioning, she admitted that she was drinking heavily, had lapse of memory. But what they don't tell you is she spent 6 days with attorneys trying to recall her memories. Okay.
Yeah, they talked it out.
Yeah, they talked it out.
Now,
so
who exactly was it? Now, again, who? Let's think about this. Who could it be?
So we hear time and time again of how victims by law enforcement interrogation actually admit to a crime that they are later found not guilty of.
Right.
It's just the way you're shaping, and you deny people sleep. You make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You do all the things you do to get them to make the torture stop.
And that would have been a tactic during that time period.
Sure.
Because law enforcement and the to give it the name, the science of law enforcement was still in development because
this accusation was made.
You still
they just did this investigation. They just did this thing with her for 6 days recently.
But, like I remember from one of my classes on criminal justice is there was a long time where you had an ideology that there was two forms of justice. You either have the people breaking rocks, or they rise to the level of you execute.
Right.
So those are the only two ways that you control or rehabilitate a criminal.
Sure. Well, yeah. So you look at her. So again, a Catholic girl from Connecticut.
Yeah.
She's off at college partying, drinking a lot. Okay, so that in itself, and she's supposedly shy.
Yeah.
Okay, that in itself is every college guy's dream.
You know what I think?
It is.
I think it was Warren from It's Something About Mary.
Yeah.
Have you seen my wiener?
Right.
That's who it was. I don't think it was Kavanaugh at all. It was Warren.
May not have been. I don't know.
You
but
never know.
Yeah. So she works at a place called Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
Again, it's
No
another
pun intended.
it's another activist type.
Okay, it's an activist
job.
group. Okay,
Yeah.
It's another activist job.
Government ties. You can kind of count on that. They're in contact with political organizations.
So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to casually lay a trail to work because we are going to lead to a conclusion here.
It would not surprise me that group being involved with this Igor Volsky's group, the Center for American Change or Policy or whatever it is.
Well, what this organization does, they provide support for domestic violence victims.
Okay. So they have a specific mission.
Yeah, they have a mission. And honestly, I believe that domestic violence in certain sectors of this country is a big problem.
Sure.
It just definitely is. There's a lot of dirtbags out there that need to be taken care of for that reason.
And we've kind of made light of this so far. And where we don't, what we're trying not to do here is make fun of actual victims. We realize that there are actual victims. In fact, what we're doing here is pointing out that these people are actually damaging real victims.
Sure.
That's what's going on.
They are, for sure. And they're being criticized openly for that by a lot of groups.
Right.
A lot of people are standing out and saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong, because this takes us back to Me Too.
Right.
So Me Too is exactly what that is. It's basically a chain gang of collaboration of I want to be in this group.
Right.
You keep flying that flag, you're going to fly it till that flag means nothing.
Absolutely. And it pretty much does now. So when you look at that, you look at the background. So we have very similar backgrounds. Young girls in college.
Yep.
Having a hell of a time.
In college, which is normal.
With a bunch of guys in college having a hell of a good time.
Right.
35 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've had movies like Animal House, Porky's, all these movies of teenage angst.
I think he even used those kind of as, when you listen to Kavanaugh in the hearings, he actually brought that up and said, when they were talking about his yearbook, he's like, Fast Times at Richmond High.
Yeah,
he made that
exactly.
correlation in there.
Because I remember in high school.
That was a culture.
Yeah.
I remember thinking in high school of my future. Hey, I want my next step in life, when I go on from high school to college, I want my college experience to be just like this.
I want to be Jeff Spicoli.
Yeah.
Give Van Halen play at your birthday party.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool, actually, right? Yeah, so let's move on to
contestant number 3.
Julie Swetnick. This one's an interesting one because she really didn't accuse anybody doing anything to her.
Yeah.
She is now she's claiming she witnessed Mr. Kavanaugh and Mr. Judge contribute to the inebriation and disorientation of guests at rape parties.
Yeah, she basically accused him of being a pimp for drugging women and bringing them to parties.
See, now we're moving into the Cosby era.
Well, it's interesting how I think it's interesting how the accusations start. The accusations, contestant number one, came in and said, well, he basically ground his genitals on me.
Right.
The next one said, oh, he pulled it out. He showed it to me.
Right.
And now we're all the way to rape. Well, I mean, it's like, we got to find something that sticks here.
She didn't say he raped. She said she was at a place. She goes, claims to be an 82 victim of a gang rape where Kavanaugh and Judge were present.
Right.
But she didn't say they raped her.
But she alludes to the fact that these were rape parties that they attended,
sure,
and that they were what they're trying to say is he facilitated. He facilitated these. That's what she comes out and says is he facilitated all this.
Sure. Yeah, this is just crazy stuff.
It almost
and rape is as if you come in and you're an accessory to it, you're basically accused of rape. If you're an accessory to rape, you get the same punishment. There's no difference. They're calling him a rapist. I mean, we're at that point.
Carefully crafted story here.
Yeah.
Going from first accuser to the third accuser, I could almost look at it as, okay, so when the first accuser first becomes publicly known.
Right.
And so when you accuse the other side of doing this and they counter with something to push back against your accusation.
Right.
They go back to the drawing board, find accuser number 2.
Right.
And so now it turns into a preponderance of a behavior. Okay. So again, it comes out, they push back, and now the only other thing that you can accuse them of is, well, he condoned something.
Right.
Well, I don't know how you push back with it other than, okay, we're going to trial.
Sure. So usually in sexual assault and rape cases, the identities of the victims are basically protected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go out and say Sally Jones got raped by the football team Saturday night.
Right.
They basically say local high school players are accused of assaulting a girl at a party.
Yes, they keep the anonymous.
It's very anonymous. None of this is anonymous.
Right.
So let's look at some facts here. They want to put a face to a name, right?
Right.
They want the accusation to stick with no collaborating witnesses whatsoever.
Right. None.
There's
none in any of these cases.
No pictures, no memos, no anything. No other people crawling out of the woodwork saying, yeah, I saw all this. None of that's going on.
And
there.
that's the interesting part of this. Allegedly, she attended 10 of these parties. Okay, so number one.
Well, she wasn't there for the beer, apparently.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
But she goes to 10 of these parties. So if you're witnessing rapes, and you go to the first, well, let's say you go to the first one and you witness a rape, and you think, oh, okay, maybe that was just a fluke. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the second one and it's the same thing. At what point do you say, hey, I'm seeing a pattern here? You know what I mean? Maybe I better not attend. Why would you get to 10 of them?
Maybe she didn't want to lose her place in line. I don't know.
So when the other thing about these three accusers is if you look at it from a statistical science sort of standpoint, so they all are basically within a range, an age range that's it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So, but they also represent
51 to 54.
They also represent a demographic that for that age group and that gender, they may show a very high presence showing up to the polls to vote.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Is the biggest tie here is they're militant Democrats.
So here's the thing, though, that will actually work against them, because if anybody went to school back in those days, they're going to recall those days and go, "Wait a minute, we called that chick a party slut."
But you also have a demographic that looks up to that age and says, who believes the opposite of, okay, do I believe that something really happened? No, I don't. That's just my personal belief based on the facts that have been presented. But you have a subset of people out there that are militant enough.
But they're going to vote that way every time. You're not changing. You know what I mean? You're not really changing hearts and minds at that point.
I've seen the videos of this one lady who visually looked off her meds, who was just the mere fact that you made an accusation. The accusation is believable until you prove that it wasn't.
Don't you think, though, a lot of that is if you put a camera and a microphone in anybody's face today, they just want to make a statement?
It's just a show.
Yeah, it's not really, doesn't mean anything. They were probably never even there.
I blame this on professional wrestling, by the way. I think that's where this mentality comes from. I hate to admit it, but if you think the start of it is believable fake violence is where we develop this from.
People base their truth off a 15-second video clip.
Well, they do. That's a known fact. So we look at this. So as we're going to wrap up a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about the hearings. One of the things that we're finding quite interesting is the fact that they're asking the FBI. Yeah. The Democrats are asking the FBI for an open-ended investigation.
Right.
A rape investigation.
Yeah, a rape,
which they don't do.
Which is not in their charter.
It's not in their purview whatsoever. And if it was, I think we'd have already heard about former presidents' involvement in those type activities. I mean, you would have had a laundry list that would have established their ability to do this, and there's nothing there.
Well, where I think this came from, and I'm not positive of this, but I want to say that the idea of the investigation came from number 3's attorney, Avenatti.
Sure.
Which is Stormy Daniels' lawyer. Funny that he found her. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Obviously, that guy's running either one of two things. That guy's either running for political office or he's looking for a spot on MSNBC.
Well, I just wonder who he's hanging out with. Yeah. Apparently, easy women are his thing.
Right.
Because honestly, that's where it seems to be hanging out with him. I mean, seriously, when you look at this, when you look at these people, they had no clue what they were walking into.
None.
These people were maneuvered into a position for 15 minutes of fame that'll be fleeting and devastating for them when it's over. Because when they leave, you couldn't trust any of them. And would you want them in your office building?
Never.
Would you want them around your family? Would you want them in your community?
500 feet from me at all times.
Exactly. So, you look at somebody that has the proclivity to make poor decisions.
Right.
Put themselves in compromising places. Then all of a sudden forget shit for 35 years. That's not somebody I'd want to be around very long or in control of anything that I had to do with.
Well, then that gets us to the hearings. I think that's a perfect way to move right into the hearings. So, 10 days after accuser number 1, after Christine Blasio Ford, 10 days.
Blasey Ford.
Blasey Ford. Yeah. I said Blasio. Blasey Ford. She makes her accusations. We got 10 days pass. Then she, you have these other 2 accusers that come out afterwards, and so you've got these 10 days, and now you've got your hearing set. So Kavanaugh takes the stand. He's like, I wanted a hearing day 1. He's like, the first day after this.
Yeah, he was very insistent on when he was ready to.
He was ready to go right then.
Right.
But we got these 10 days that pass, and you have these other 2 accusers show up. So, but she takes the stand first. She gets in there, and she gives her little spiel, and puts on her little mousy voice, and starts to testify to the fact that she doesn't remember any facts of how she got there, what happened before that. She knows that she had potentially 1 beer. She can't tell you how she got into the room even. Just the facts of what happened in the room. And then after it's all over, she can't tell you how she got home. She can't tell you where the house is.
But she can absolutely tell you who assaulted her.
Right, 100% certainty.
Didn't she also say she used a cell phone?
She did say she used a cell phone.
And I'm still digging in to find out where that comment came from. And I haven't found it yet. But somebody else on Twitter, because this thing has been like all on fire on Twitter. Everybody's just tearing it apart.
Yeah, the downfall with social media is that whatever gets out there first becomes the truth.
Right.
That's just the problem with social media.
That's the sad part of it. But her testimony, and see, that's just it. What part? I keep hearing how credible she was, how believable she was. What part of that's believable? If I came in here and told you guys, Ken, I saw an alien. Well, where were you? Well, I don't know. Well, who were you with? I don't know. Well, you're missing a lot of facts there, Lofton. You want me to believe this story? You're not painting any kind of picture for me to believe this.
Sure. You just need to take my word because I'm a woman.
Exactly. So, you just need to take my word because I'm an alien expert. Apply.
Well, according to the Democrats, she's a hero victim.
Yeah.
They make these people hero victims.
So because of all of this, all social media platforms that kind of show heavy political events are like on fire with just everything about this case, not only from the
and it's from whatever side
from the politicians, the people that are involved, the intrigue. So on social media, I somebody in my family put something out about their opinion about this case, and somebody they know responded with the fact that you have a woman who is claiming that she was sexually assaulted. How can you not take this seriously? That we need to dive further into this, and we can't let this guy get into court. So I read it and I said, the fact that you have leapt from this guy is immediately guilty because a lady
just made the accusation.
I said, this is the equivalent of getting on the phone with your doctor, telling him what's wrong, and him relaying a diagnosis over the phone.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense to you? And all of a sudden, people were like, well, that actually is a really good analogy. I said, fucking A, it is. You're wanting a doctor to give you a decision based on no physical evidence, no examination, no anything.
Well, the presumption of innocence is a right that the Democrats reserve for themselves.
Right.
Okay? If you're not in our party and you're not following our ideology, you obviously have to be corrupt and evil.
And you're also not subject to the rules that allow them to get
because this
around
entire process is breaking all the rules.
Yeah, everything about this.
Is following the rules.
Right.
So they clearly exhibit a disregard for following the rules. So thinking you're going to get a fair shake with these bastards is a fantasy.
Well, let's look at some of the players on their side of the aisle that have been accused of this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Cory Booker. a self-admitted groper. He basically said it in public.
Yeah.
I groped a woman. Basically what accuser number one is accusing Kavanaugh of.
Right.
So Cory Booker came out and said, I did this. Where's the trial for this guy?
Oh.
Where's the FBI investigation?
Because he's a self-realized, and he's admitted it.
Yeah.
And he's such a glorious man because he came to terms with it.
Okay, but
now
he's trying to write.
Now he's trying to right the world. No, I'm telling you, this is how they think.
Yeah.
This is what they think. So yeah, you got that going on. You got Ellison, who clearly beat his wife.
Now you got police documentation of this.
That.
You got photos.
So what did Franken get removed from office for?
He took pictures of himself grabbing a chick's chest.
It was military,
That's right.
It was.
It was a military girl.
Well,
She
I don't
had
know
body-
if she was military.
she
She
had
was a
body
reporter.
armor.
Well, she was a reporter. They
I
were going
thought somebody
overseas.
had body armor on.
She did.
Okay, and so
So she
again,
was an embedded reporter.
somebody else who basically was demeaning or overstepped their freaking boundaries.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He tried to hang on. I thought for sure that guy was going to hang on because this was right. He got busted right in the middle of the whole Me Too startup movement with Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein.
Okay.
That's where this all started coming in. So I think he just got caught up in the moment. But he was a hanger-on. I really thought that guy was going to be able to save his seat.
And I want all these people that have done Ellison, Booker,
Clinton, Frank,
the philanderer in charge, Clinton. Look at what that guy got away with.
Yeah, I want the hammer down on the people who are sitting in responsible seats for their states. I want them gone.
Well, it's funny you say that. There's an interesting statistic came out that said that $17 million of taxpayers' money was spent to pay sexual harassment settlements within Congress.
And it's sealed.
So when you go search for that, it's sealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
sealed.
did they offer why it's sealed?
To protect the identities of the accused.
And if you believe that, I've got some oceanfront property.
Of the accused, which we are now
Arizona.
watching live real time where this guy's family's getting threatened.
Yeah.
He's having all kinds of threats and problems over it.
Right.
And they've just exposed 3 people.
Right. So she gives her testimony, finishes up with 0 facts, and then they let Kavanaugh on afterwards. And that guy was a total fireball when he opened up. I thought it was great. I don't know what y'all thought of his opening. I understand where his passion's coming from because I would be that upset if that was my family. And she claimed this as well, but they're getting death threats.
Sure.
I mean, they're talking about raping his wife in these emails. I mean, just the most bizarre, sick shit is coming out from people threatening Kavanaugh's wife. I mean, it's bizarre. So you're going to fight rape with rape? Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much. Yeah.
What's wrong with you people? But no, I thought he was a complete fireball. I thought he was very believable. I think he had all his facts. I thought it was interesting that he said, look, as a kid, I kept a journal. I kept a really detailed journal. I learned that from both of my parents.
That piece of information surprised the heck out of me.
I was not expecting it.
I wish that it had come out way earlier.
Well, it would have if they would have had the hearing the day like he wanted
when
to,
he wanted
the day
it,
after.
yes.
But I thought it was interesting that he's got this detailed journal that basically documents everything that he ever did in his high school career, what he did after school, what he did to get ready for football. I mean, this guy had it down.
Right.
Which also points to me and says, this dude's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
This is a guy that I want as a judge because he's very aware of the facts.
This is somebody who had his eye on the ball ever since he was a kid.
Right. So here we are. We have these hearings, and we get to the end of it, and you got Jeff Flake, our wonderful Senator Jeff Flake.
Who's who? What state does he represent?
I think he's from. Flake is from Arizona, right?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell you. I want to say he's Arizona. I want to say he was one of McCain's counterparts.
I'll look it up.
But anyway, we get to the end of it, and there's Jeff Flake, and he goes and pulls Kuntz out, and they have their little 5-minute powwow out there
He does
in
this
the hallway.
whole reach across the aisle thing.
Yeah. I mean, I watched these hearings. I thought, man, we've got this wrapped up. I watched Kavanaugh. I thought, slam dunk. He put this away. we're not going to have to deal with this. The vote's going to come up. He's going to go through.
And Friday was the day that they said that this vote was going to happen.
It was. Well, it was going to happen. It was going to happen in the committee.
Right.
And then this week it was supposed to happen on the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
And so Friday they had the meeting. And at the end of it, Blake grabs Kuntz and they come up with this. Well, we're going to let the FBI investigate. We're going to let the FBI take over something that they've never done before.
Right, that is not in their purview.
So here we are. I mean...
Well, they couldn't solve what happened in Vegas.
Yeah.
They couldn't find Hillary servers. I mean, gee, many Christmas, it goes on and on and on forever. I mean, it's just... FBI is just virtually ineffective in these areas. And here we go. But they also know that.
They do.
So that means
they're counting on it. I think they're counting on the fact.
Well... And of all agencies to be investigating anything that has anything to do with a Trump decision or action, it's the FBI, which in my opinion already has a bias against Trump anyway.
Well, we're going to carry this on over into our second podcast. So we're going to cover like the media frenzy and everything else that took place after the fact in this second podcast that we have.